Hi, my name is Bailey Keenan, and I'm a second-year law student at Penn State Law, and am participating in the Manglona Lab for Gender and Economic Equity. For one of the lab's projects, Witnesses to Herstory, we are capturing women's personal experiences in education, sports, and the workforce, focusing on the 1960s and 70s. Today, I have the privilege of interviewing my grandmother, Carol Bruce Shaw, as a 1970s Rutgers University graduate, a mother to four children, and a speech pathologist. She lived through one of the most radical times that contributed to modern day's women's rights. So to start, Grandma, I know that you were born in 1943 in Princeton, West Virginia.
41.
41.
Yeah.
So I wanted to start by asking you a little bit about your childhood.
Okay.
Could you tell me who lived in your home with you?
When I was born, we lived in my grandfather's home. My grandfather lived there, my parents and my older brother.
And did either of your parents work outside of the home?
My father did, and my grandfather. My grandfather was he worked on the railroad. They both worked on the railroad.
And what did your mother do?
My mother stayed home, but she had a kindergarten in one of the rooms in the house. She always did something to earn a little money. And she kept house.
And what about your siblings? Did you and your siblings participate in any activities or anything as children?
My brother was very creative, so he did a lot of different things. Like he would make costumes and would give plays. He would go hunting sometimes with his father. He played war games and filmed it outside after the war. He did pretend play like that. But he was very important to me.
And what about you? What activities did you participate in?
Well, when I was very little, I played with, there were just boys in the neighborhood. And so I played the boys' games, and I always wanted to be a boy because, I mean, certain things boys could do, girls couldn't. And my brother would tell me, just kiss your elbow, you could be a boy. And I couldn't kiss my elbow. I tried so hard. And my mother finally said, Carol, you're never going to be a boy, never. So I just guess that's what was going to happen. Then I was the mommy, my brother was the daddy, and Teddy Bear was the baby, and we had all the kids in the neighborhood, and we would cook, and my mother would cook, and we would pretend we cooked, and I would serve them, and my cousin said I was the bossiest little girl in the neighborhood. Never seen.
Going back to you saying that you always wanted to participate in more boy activities, how did that make you feel that you kind of weren't supposed to participate in those activities?
How did it make me feel that what?
Yeah, how did it make you feel?
That I played the boys' games?
Yeah.
Um, I had fun. I, I, I mean, when I was little, I got hand-me-downs from my brother, and I didn't like it because they had flies on the shorts, and I didn't have little girl shorts, but it's just because I knew they were boys' shorts. But I wore them; it was okay, and then I did have some girlfriends by the time I was first grade, and we played dress up. We were Hedy Lamarr, and we'd play that type of thing, and play wedding. Wedding was a big deal because we all were going to grow up and get married and have kids. And that was our primary function.
So then kind of going on to your early education, do you ever remember having to wear a uniform to school, or was there a dress code or anything that you needed to follow?
We weren't allowed to wear jeans. We weren't allowed to wear pants. And that was by the time we got to junior high, we were allowed to wear jeans on gym day, which was Friday. But that was the only dress code.
Was no one allowed to wear pants, or were only the girls not allowed
Just the
to?
girls. Just the
Just the
girls.
girls.
Yeah.
What were the boys allowed to wear?
Anything they wanted. They wore jeans or pants or shirts. It wasn't, you didn't dress up to go to school. You just wore your regular clothes. No one ever wore shorts to school, even in the summer, in the spring. We always be dressed in dresses, and boys in pants, but no uniform.
How did you feel about only having to wear a skirt or a dress?
At the time, I didn't care. I loved school. I didn't care. That was fine. And I went to school. What did bother me were some of the kids at school who rode the bus into school. They were country kids, and they didn't have shoes. They might have one dress. They'd wear it every day, and that really hurt me. And I remember collecting shoes for them, bringing them Christmas presents, wrapping them up, like mittens and hats and things like that, and bringing them to school. And I was like a little social worker in the first and
Aw.
second grade.
Well, that
But
was very sweet.
I really, it really bothered me because I thought they were getting cold, and I thought they weren't treated right.
But going back to what you said before, about how girls were only kind of supposed to wear skirts or dresses, can you remember what your mom wore in the home? What she typically wore?
She wore a house dress, just a regular dress. She always wore an apron to cover her dress. So did my grandmother. And she wore old shoes like loafers, but they're always ugly shoes. But when she went out, and when we went, we go to Roanoke, the town that is an hour or so away, we would make sure we had gloves on and carried our bags, and we dressed nice. We dressed nice when you go shopping down here. I don't know that we did that in Princeton. We might have, but I know we did it when we go visit my aunt and uncle in Roanoke. We were going to go shopping.
So even in the home, you don't really remember your mom ever wearing pants or any
No,
type of, no,
no,
it was always
no,
a dress.
no. It was always a dress. I don't think she had anything. I mean, I don't even remember her wearing a bathing suit.
Getting back to school, so you were kind of told you could wear a skirt or a dress. And then concerning the classes, what classes were offered to you in school?
Reading, writing, arithmetic at the beginning. That's what all kids start out with. It wasn't, I mean, we learned differently in those days. In the first grade, Miss Mole, who had taught my father and me, said that first graders should never get an A because they're never that good. So we just went to school. By third or fourth grade, we started learning how to put things together. Fifth grade, I was interested in math, and my teacher told me it was for boys and just don't bother with that.
How did that make you feel when she said that?
I went, oh, I was kind of naive, and I just kind of went with the program. And I was a happy little kid, and I loved school.
And then as you got older through school, was there other classes that um, were offered to you that may not have been offered to boys or vice versa?
Well, home ec. Boys didn't usually take home ec. I don't think there was ever a boy in home ec, but we learned how to be good wives with sewing and cooking and cleaning and all that. We got that in high school. We were told you should take a secretarial course or typing, and I refused. I said, because my father always said my brother should grow up and work on the railroad. I should grow up and be a secretary for the railroad. I didn't ever want to be a secretary. I wanted to be an archaeologist. I wanted to be a teacher, and I wanted to be a rock star. So I didn't end up with any of those things, really.
How did they react when you said you didn't want to take typing?
He just said it again, and I just pouted and thought to myself, I'm not going to do that. I'll do what I want. But that's how girls had to get through things. We lived in a man's world, and we didn't always do what they told us to do, but we'd figure out in our head how we could get around it, and they would never know. It was like a passive aggressive type thing. And that's we got a lot done. And my mother grew up like that too.
So then how did you get around taking typing?
I just said no. And I said, well, I was taking I was taking music and things, and my mother always would come in and, tell my father just to leave me alone. But he just thought that would be great. Because I could be a secretary, and I didn't want to be a secretary for anything. I still don't like to type on my computer. But I play piano. And he said, it's just like playing piano. Well, no, it isn't.
And then moving on from classes in school to the extracurriculars that were offered, could you talk a little bit about the extracurriculars that were offered to girls?
We had cheerleading, which I went out for and didn't make in junior high. We had, what did we have? There was, it was always music. I did a lot of music. I was in madrigals and sang in a choir, and I had a group of six girls who sang. They were girls, no boys. And I did a lot of music. We sang all over our little town. We sang on local TV and radio. And that was primarily that, and going to church was primarily what I did. Boys were like second to that. They did the sports and things like that. But we did like more cultural things, you know.
Were any sports offered to girls?
Probably, but I know in college we all had to take soccer or field hockey. I don't know which one. That's how much I know about sports. But it just floored me that we had to do that. It was a girls' school, but it made my throat bad, and I couldn't sing for 2 weeks because of it. So I didn't like it. That was it.
And role models are pretty important as you're growing up. So I was wondering, did you have any role models that you looked up to as a kid?
Always looked up to my mother. The way my mother would react to how Peter treated her, how she handled difficult situations. And she was generally my role model. So was my grandmother. My grandmother was very religious, and she had religious dietary needs. And to this day, I don't really like meat. She didn't. I don't wear much jewelry. She didn't either. I don't. There are a lot of things like that that I do that I know they were influenced by my grandmother, and this is how she was.
And when it comes to career aspirations, did you have any role models there, like any famous people or people in certain types of career paths that you looked up to?
In speech pathology, no. I I saw a speech therapist working on TV. I thought that's what I'll be when I grow up, or when I get older. I was holding my last baby when I saw that, rocking him to sleep, and I figured when he got to school age, I could go back to school maybe. But I would ask. This was in the 70s, and it was at a time when women were becoming more independent, and they were burning their bras, and I been through all the 60s, and I the world seemed to be tumbled over, but I was in my nice safe neighborhood, and I had my 4 kids, and I had my life very conservative. I taught Sunday school, I taught Bible school, I sang in choirs. I did all these things that were just lovely, and really ignored the outside. So I really never thought ahead far enough to look up who were people who were would be role models for me. And it was just like, it was just like something I wanted to do. And I researched it and knew that there were only 2 in the whole county, 2 speech therapists. So I figured that was pretty good.
Even thinking back to your junior high school days, did you feel that way too, that you didn't really have a career type of role model in your early junior high school days?
No, I was going to grow up, meet somebody, and get married and have kids. If I got a career, it was way far in the background. It was like, oh, maybe.
And how did that make you feel?
I didn't allow myself to feel that I could do a career or that there was a reason for it. And when I did decide in the early 70s that I was going to do that, and I knew that things were changing. Women were becoming more independent and more of a person because they weren't really people, equal people. And then Roe versus Wade happened, and I had known people who had abortions, but abortion was illegal. You didn't ever tell anybody you had one, or you were, all that was illegal, but it was still done. And it's like, I thought, gee, maybe I can have a career. And I would ask my husband, I'd like to go back to school, and he'd say, where are you going to get the money? And I would stop me because I was still afraid to do it. And finally, I just wrote a check, and I went. That
definitely sounds like a big transformation in your ideology and all that.
It was, and I was like, oh, I'm one of these strong women. I'm going to go back to school. And the state of New Jersey, they were telling the schools their women, since a lot of us quit school after 2 years of college and got married, there were a lot of us we had growing families, and we were needing to thinking about going back to work or going to work, that we never worked, but we weren't educated to do things. And the state of New Jersey told the state schools to be more lenient in letting us in, let us in as traditional type students. We were called retreads.
I just want to backtrack on something that you said. So could you tell me a little bit about what you thought about college when you were in high school?
When I was in high school?
Yeah, what did you think about college?
Oh, everybody was going to college. All my friends, we all went. We went to state schools, we went to private schools, but we all went. I don't think there was any of my girlfriends that did not have an aspiration of going to college. And we all ended up doing different things, but it was just, I didn't have any friends that didn't go to school.
So did you feel like going to college was expected of you?
Yes, but not of my brother and sister, but it was expected of me.
So you individually, not your brother or sister. It was expected of you, you felt like, by your parents.
Yes, because my brother was very artistic, and he was going to go off in the art world, and he didn't feel he needed further education. And my sister grew up more in the 60s, and she joined the hippies and for a weekend or so, and was pulled away from that. But she went one semester and quit. It just wasn't for her, but it was for me.
How did your parents react to your college aspirations?
My mother was very happy. My father didn't really care. It was something I did. I was the one who liked school. My brother and sister, my sister had a reading problem in the 5th grade. She had trouble getting through words and things. And she was more interested in being free because she'd gone to a boarding school, and she was very restricted in what she could do. And once she went to college, and it was a Catholic junior college, which was restricted, but she lived off campus, and she was able to do a little more. She did demonstrations and things like that in the 60s.
How come she went to boarding school?
Because my parents divorced, and my mother had to find a job that would support her and my sister. And they accepted my sister as a student, and my mother was the house mother. That's how that worked.
When did your parents get divorced?
When 2 years after I was married, so 63. It was not a good marriage, so they were better off.
So then going into your college years, did you finish college?
I went 2 years. I made sure that I didn't make anything but a C because I knew I was getting married, and I'd have to transfer my credits, and only C's transferred. So why make better than a C? It was a stupid way of thinking about things. Then in the 70s, I did go back to school. I went to Douglas or Rutgers and got my bachelor's from Rutgers and my master's. I did well with that. But
Yes, and I'm definitely going to touch on Rutgers in a minute. But going back to Longwood, what was your major there?
music. And I mean, when I think about it, I was supposed to be going to school to be a teacher. I didn't want to be a music teacher. I didn't want to have a band or a choir at school. I don't know why I thought that was important. I mean, I belonged to a sorority, but that wasn't a big deal. And what I liked doing was going to VMI to dances and seeing my boyfriend, and making sure I made at least a C, and not worrying about too much. And I took mostly music.
So how soon after you had left Longwood did you get married?
About 2 weeks. Because we got out of school the last of May. We were married on the 14th of June, and he graduated on the 11th of June.
So he went through college fully.
Oh, he graduated from VMI. Yeah.
And did you plan on getting married that soon after you dropped out?
Yeah, I met him when I was a senior in high school, and we were engaged before I went to college. And we knew that in 2 years, when he graduated, we would get married. And half the class was like that. Everybody was going to get married after their sophomore year. And you really didn't think about a career as being real, because you were going to get married.
Was there a reason why it was typically after your sophomore year?
I don't know. I kind of think that girls dated boys 2 years older, and that's when they would graduate. And that's what a lot of them were, married people who graduated 2 years before, or at the same time they were a sophomore. So I think that might have been.
Could you tell me, what did you see marriage being like? I'm sorry. What did you see marriage life being like?
Oh, I got this nice house dress that you could wrap and tie it in the back, and it was a house dress. My mother gave me a box of rags, and I thought, well, I guess I'll have to clean, and I'll take care of him, and I'll cook. And then the first week I was overwhelmed that all the things that women do, taking care of the apartment, which that was them. The first meal I cooked, I thought I was cooking pork, and I cooked it forever, and it was ham, because it never turned gray. It was always pink. I did some silly things then.
Was what you expected married life to be like, did you see that reflected in examples in your own community? Was that similar to marriages you had seen growing up?
Maybe. Not sure I paid too much attention to it. I know that I had to do what my husband wanted to do. It was his choices. If he got a new job, we had to move. And we did move all over the country every time he changed jobs. If he said no, that was it. If he wanted to do something, I had to follow. And it wasn't a bad had to, if you know what I mean. Okay, I'll do that. I was very compliant. It was his career, his life that I was concerned about, because he was the leader of our family to be, and our family. Didn't matter really what I wanted.
So would you or would you not say that you split up decision making equally in your marriage?
No. I made decisions a lot about the kids, and he made all the others. He held the checkbook, and he had the money. I didn't have that. I did one year take care of the bills and pay them, and we were saving money. And he took it away from me. He said, it makes you too nervous. I think it made him nervous. But so he took that job away from me.
Uh, how did it make you feel when he took that job away from you?
I was sad because I was enjoying it. It was fun to, add up the numbers and see what you could save and where you could do things. But he didn't want that. He wanted to do it. And we didn't save that much money with him. He liked to spend it. So
And then going back, I know you had 4 children. Did you see yourself having children always?
I always wanted children. I always thought I'd have four. It just was always there. And I used to tell my family when I was little that I wasn't going to marry anybody unless they scratched my back every night. But that was a big deal to talk about and think about marriage. It was always there.
And then when you got pregnant, how old were you and how did you find out?
I was pregnant. I got pregnant a month after I got married. I had started taking the pill and I missed one. So I thought, oh, I'll wait until next month to start him again. Well, I was pregnant, but I had my first child 10 months after I was married. Had I had that child in less than 9 months, my insurance or my husband's insurance would not have paid because it would have been out of marriage conception, I would assume, but they wouldn't have paid if my first child had come early. It was just that was for the times.
How did you find out you just
Oh,
missed your
how did
period?
I didn't have my period, and I went to the doctor, and he told me I was, but then I had some spotting, and he said, take a trip around Lake Michigan, and either you'll lose it then, or you'll not lose it, and you'll have a baby. And I did. I had the baby, or I stayed pregnant. Let's just say that.
What were the reactions to your first pregnancy?
I was excited. My husband was appalled.
Why was that?
He didn't want kids yet, and I don't blame him really. He was 21. I mean, he's just starting his work life, and we were just married. You see, I refer to his work life rather than our marriage, because that had just started. But I was thrilled because I was on my way to be married and have kids.
And how did your parents react?
They said, we're just eating the wedding cake, and you're telling us you're pregnant. So that was their response.
And then, do you remember anything that your doctor had told you you could or couldn't do when you were pregnant?
No, just no sex after 3 or 4 months or something. Some deadline for that, but the doctors didn't tell you too much. They just, you were pregnant. That was about it.
And then once you had your kids, how did you and your husband split up the decision making when it came to your children? What were you more responsible for?
I was responsible for teaching them morals, teaching them work habits, teaching them fun, dressing them, feeding them. He would take care of them when I'd have a baby. He would come in and cook dinner and help get the kids to bed when I'd have another child. But sometimes when your mother was born, he was planning a trip to California 2 days after, and I pitched a fit and he canceled his trip. It was a business trip, but after that, he made sure somebody was with me. But he was to tell them, he told my son about starting fires because my son had lit a candle in his room and put it under his bed, which was not safe. So he showed him a house that burned down. But and then he taught the boys sports, even the girls. He was your mother's soccer coach. So he did do sports with them. That was about all. I went to the music concerts and things like that, plays. I don't know that he went to any of the plays or things.
And then how did you feel about how you split those parenting responsibilities?
I don't know. Sometimes it angered me. I was supposed to take the kids to church while he played baseball. And that made me angry. And one morning, the kids went outside to play, and my daughter stuck her foot under a lawnmower, neighbor's lawnmower, and cut the tip of her toe off. And I had to, wait for him to come home. When we took her to the emergency room and had the toe repaired or fixed, but he wasn't home, and I couldn't reach him. And it made me angry that he was out playing baseball, and the fact that I had to take him to church, and he wouldn't go. I was responsible, and they would kind of make fun of having to go to church because Daddy didn't go.
Did you want to go to church?
Oh yeah, that was my life. I did until the minister ran off with one of the parishioners, and no one would come and teach Sunday school or Bible school, and it was like, why? This is stupid. It was like a fake. It was all fake.
So then I know we had previously talked about while you had kids, you had started to see this whole revolution going on with women's rights. Mm-hmm. Could you talk a little bit about how all those things made you feel, kind of the second wave feminism?
Well, it was over a 10-year period, over all the 60s, and to see all the different things happening. We lived near Washington, right on the outskirts, and we always would like to go downtown and go out to dinner and do things like that. And one night we were told, don't come down here anymore, it's getting dangerous. And then all the rioting happened there, and your grandfather was he was on the fire department. The fire department went down for fires and things, and it was starting to be a little bit like it's affecting my life, because my life was in that little town, and I didn't like it. I didn't want any change. I liked where I was. I was being taken care of. I could stay home. I enjoyed playing with my kids, and I didn't want to have to go out and face the world. And when the early 70s, when they started burning the bras, I say that because that was a big deal then. Women decided they were out, waving those bras up in the air. But it was, they were saying, you've come a long way, baby, and then we were going to be almost, well, we were going to be more independent. And then the Roe versus Wade, that had a lot to do with our being safer and being treated more like a human being, that we could control our bodies. And I didn't want an abortion, but at least I could. If that happened, I wouldn't be ostracized by the whole community, which that's the way it was before. And a lot of women died having abortions, or they go downtown. And I before and after that, I helped women with abortions when it was illegal, and I helped them when it was legal. That was a big difference.
How did you help them?
I took them to the place to get it, and I helped them around with my mother. My mother and I helped this one person arrange where she should go, and help take care of her afterwards.
When it was illegal, how did it feel to help them?
It's dangerous. It was illegal, and if you got caught, it was a crime. It's like, if the person had had the child, it would not have been good for the person. I mean, the person would have had a drastically different life. My aunt worked in a hospital, and during the 40s and early 50s, she worked in the nursery, and she said they were told the babies that were impaired, that were probably going to have a lot of defects and things, they were told not to feed them. And that's how they kind of took care of abortion. And it's kind of bad. I mean, she said she would sometimes sneak back in there and feed them. But that was abortion would be much kinder, I think.
Comparatively, how did you feel when you were helping them post Roe v. Wade?
I was helping a friend and getting things done. Uh, they were married, even, and they just didn't want more children. And I just took them to the doctor and waited for them, and we came home. And it was okay with me. I don't know that I could have done it after I had children. That could have, but maybe if I was a young girl and got pregnant, maybe that would have been good for me. But in their case, they just didn't want more children.
So you would say it felt safer after Roe v. Wade?
Oh, it was a lot safer. It was open. We didn't go announce that these people were going to have abortions, but we didn't hide it either.
And then I know we started on this second wave feminism topic because it inspired you to go back to school.
Yes, it did.
Could you tell me a little about what made your decision to go to Rutgers?
They have a speech course. That's just where I wanted to go. And I thought it was close enough I could live at home. And my friend and I would go out every day looking for Rutgers admissions office, and we wouldn't find it, so we would go to lunch. And we did that for a couple of years. And we were just prolonging it. She wanted to be a social worker. And one day we found it, and within a week, we were accepted at school. And that was just the way it was. I really didn't look into any other school.
How did your husband feel about you going back to school?
He was peeved. He thought he couldn't believe I wrote the check and it didn't bounce, and I was like, you know what I mean. I was just happy. And then as I went to school and I finished my bachelor's, he said it was hard to get a job with just a bachelor's. So he said, oh, well, why don't you get your master's right away? I was going to take it just a course or two at a time. And he supported that up until the last semester, the summer. I went a full year in the summer. And that I had been given a job, which was 1 or 2 hours a week working with kids. And he said, you use that to pay for your school, which angered me that, he made me, the first time I earned anything, and I was saving it to buy furniture for the house because he wouldn't do that, new furniture. But it just angered me that he wanted me to take that when he paid for the rest of it. But a year after I got my master's, he said he wanted a divorce. And he said, had you never gone back to school, I would not have asked for a divorce. So he made me feel guilty that I had gone back to school. It was not good. He did pay for all of it, though, other than that, which I'm grateful for. And it wasn't very much.
But then back to something that you had just said, when he said you save your money to pay for that last semester,
yeah.
Did you typically do joint finances or did you keep them separate once you started working?
I think it was still joint. I never looked at the checkbook. He thought I should start separating because he knew he's going to leave. And when I bought a car, he said, I think you should put it in your name. And he told me I should set up IRA for myself. And so he did kind of prepare me. And then 2 months later, he said he was leaving. But there were signs, but I didn't know, I wasn't for sure that all that was going to happen, but it did.
And then going back to your time at Rutgers, do you remember how the other students treated you?
Well, there were 20 of us that were in the speech department, and I set myself up with the smartest ones. And we had study groups, and we would talk the teachers, the professors into doing group projects, 3 and 4 or 5 others. We studied like every weekend. We would go for a half a day. We'd go sometime during the week too, and we'd give each other projects to do. And there were 3 of us that were retreads in that class, and we I think two of us belonged to that group, but I did real well. But I think it was good that I set myself up with kids and with adults to get the best out of what I was doing. And I was well respected.
Could you explain what a retread was one more time?
A retread is somebody who'd been out of school for a while and came back in to finish. Typically, the women who went to school got married and came back.
And then, did you tend to like Rutgers or Longwood more?
I think I liked Rutgers better because it was I was learning something. I wanted to be there. Longwood, I was waiting for my husband to graduate. That was about it. I loved music. I was in the music building all the time, was practicing, doing things, but I didn't really think it was going to happen. I wanted to get married. I counted the days until I got married. But Rutgers, I studied, and that was the big deal, was the study and learning.
And then your professors, were they mainly men or women?
They were mostly women. The profession is mostly women. It's
the profession as in speech pathology.
Yes, it's speech pathology, yes.
And what made you pick speech pathology?
Because I was holding Scott one day and watching TV, and there was a speech therapist on there, and I thought that I liked the interaction. It worked on sound and speech, and I always took speech classes, public speaking. I took debate. I took music, and I liked, presenting like that. It was kind of there are a lot of speech therapists that come in through music.
And then, how did people react to your choice of picking speech therapy?
You mean my family?
Yes, your family.
They were all happy for me. And then it was, once I started working, my kids were very good. My older daughter kind of took over a lot of the care of the kids when I was at school, but I tried to be at school when they were at school. But she was a big help. And my other kids, they were fine with it. And then I started making money, and they were even more fine with it. But and I was glad I had a career once I was on my own, because I couldn't have made it otherwise.
And then once you started practicing speech therapy, do you remember anything about the interview processes for your job, for your first job?
Let's see, my first job was, I worked for a emotionally disturbed school, and I was one of the speech pathologists. And I don't remember. I know that they were happy with me, but at first I didn't get that job because they wanted somebody who had already gotten their master's. And so I was in the master's. That's why I went into the master's program. But then I started substituting for them and went in that way. But that was a place. I was there for 4 years, but I did everything I could do in there. And that's why I went on to do some other things, nursing home things up.
And then at your first job, were most of your superiors men or women?
There were men and women. It was kind of equal. It was a psychiatric center, but the women were usually the teachers. The men were the psychiatrists that kind of ran it. That were men usually run those things.
And then how long did you practice for?
33 years. I stopped when I was 72. I didn't work all the time in the later years, but I did work. And that career supported me and my two younger children. So I was glad that I had that career.
So then throughout your career, did you ever feel there was a time, or did you feel that you were paid correctly or equally?
I could work with a man who would be working for me, but in his other jobs, he'd be making more than I made. And always the men made more than I did. And I didn't think that was right, but I think it still might be that way.
So that was all throughout your career, not just the beginning.
Yes, all through my career. And I say it might be still today, I'm not sure.
And how did that make you feel?
Pissed off. But what was I going to do about it? There's not much you could do about it. I was having to work. Sometimes I worked 6 and 7 days a week, and some days 3, was off and on. I worked for different places.
And then, in light of all your experiences, what makes you most proud of your younger self?
My younger self, I don't know, I was kind of stupid. I did silly things, and if I could go back, I would change them. But I was a very immature, innocent, naive person. I mean, I was sure there were people on Mars. I was sure of a lot of things that were happening that weren't happening, and California was going to fall in the ocean. I remembered thinking all those things. Uh, I I don't like that about myself. I do like the fact that I love being a mother. So,
Well, that was great. Thank you, Grandma, for participating in this project with me.
well, thank you for having me.